how's it going, everybody? Thanks for clicking on today's video. So we all know the importance of clean, purified, filtered drinking water, but you get a lot of questions about doing it out in the woods. So that's what today's video is about. Like I said, we all know the importance of drinking filtered water that is safe for us to consume. No matter what the source is, unless it's direct from a spring, you're taking a risk of getting sick with some kind of bacteria, cryptosporidium, giardium, all that fun stuff. I just want to share with you how I process my water when I'm out in the woods, and the pros and cons of filtering versus boiling. So before anyone freaks out, let's pump the brakes. Now, I'm not saying that I don't boil my water. I absolutely do boil water. It gives you a hot drink whenever it's colder, and it kind of kills two birds with one stone in that way. And I also always advocate to boil water. Boiling water is a guaranteed, surefire method to kill bacteria, viruses, protozoa, and all that. But boiling water does not get rid of lead and harsh taste and chemicals and all that stuff. So whatever you dip your cup in and boil in, it's going to look like it, it's going to taste like it, unless you do some other means of filtration by a bandana or whatnot. I was just saying that for the most part here in my area in Texas, it's hot, and I don't know if you've ever boiled water before. You have to wait a while for it to cool down, and there's just nothing worse than whenever you're really thirsty and you're really hot and you have to wait for water to cool down. And you can put it in the creek and it does speed it up, but man, it is frustrating. So filtering water is something that I've been doing now for the past 4 years or so, and I've filtered water all over here in Texas, Arkansas, Missouri, Ohio, pretty much everywhere that I've been. And you've joined me here in my videos. I've filtered water, and I've never gotten sick from it when I use the filter correctly. You can ask Travis Henry about that story. But I've never gotten sick from it. And especially this day and age, with the technology that we have now and the filters that are out on the market, you're worrying about a 0.0001% of something. And they also have ways of getting rid of the chemicals and the lead and the bad taste. So especially in an area like where I am, where there is runoff from people's property and fertilizer and all that could be in the water, filtering has just become kind of my way of taking care of the water when I go camping or doing an overnight or whatnot. So I just want to show you the filters that I'm familiar with and kind of lay out the pros and cons of filtering, boiling, and all that stuff, because there's a lot of people that just don't know what to do when they come out here into the woods. It might be their first time camping, or they might be on a day hike and they bring water with them, but it never fails. All of a sudden you run out of water and you're far enough away from the vehicle that, you know, you're thirsty, and it's not life or death, but it sure would be nice to just be able to stop by a place like this, get your water, and then keep on moving. So hopefully that's what you'll get from today's video. First up is going to be the Sawyer Squeeze water filter system. This one's been around for a long time. It's proven, it works. This is what most people use. It's what most people recommend. But as you can see, there's definitely downsides to it. And in my opinion, it's kind of behind times now with new filters on the market. The nozzle on the bags is so small, it's almost impossible to fill it up. Don't worry, I'm not drinking that. I'm just trying to blow into it and help aerate it a little bit. But it is very hard to fill up, and unless you bring something externally to pour water into it, you're never going to get a full bag of water. So you're going to have to constantly just squeeze a little bit of water that's out of this into your cup and refill it and refill it and refill it. I got around this for a while by carrying one of these little squishy bowls by Guy Out Design. It also works for other filters, because if it's a small rain puddle or something in a rock, you can still get water using this and pour it into the other filters that I'll show you. But this is by far the best way. A lot of people will carry a cut-off end of a plastic bottle because it collapses really small and it doesn't weigh anything. But unless you're under a dripping stream or something like that, you're going to have to resort to doing something like this, because you'll never get enough water in that bag. Now, the reason that I say it is behind the times compared to other filters is you have to bring a lot of stuff with this filtration system in order for it to work effectively.
It's easy to use for sure. You fill up the bag, you screw on the filter, and you start squeezing it. But as you can see here, even though this isn't a super old filter, it's going on about a year, year and a half, and there's next to no flow rate at all. I pre-wet this filter before I left the house, and even that didn't help with it. This is one of the big downfalls that I have with it, is you have to bring these back flushing implements, a little straw, multiple bags, like all this stuff that just makes it more of a hassle than anything else. These filters did kind of set the standard for all the other ones, I feel like, because it finally showed people that you have a way of carrying something portable that is going to be very effective against the things that are harmful to us in water. But it's just kind of outdated in my opinion, and it's very slow. The flow rate is not that great. Even after back flushing and cleaning it and cleaning it and cleaning it, it still just doesn't flow like what it used to. Now this one is also part of the Sawyer squeeze system, but this is the full size one. This isn't the mini. And as you can see here, it works a lot better. And this one's actually older, so the bigger filter by far I think helps, just because of the particulates and all the stuff that can get in there. Even after back flushing, you can imagine the kind of stuff that these filters catch. These are very effective, and they still have a place in the outdoors and in your pack. It's just whether or not you want to weigh the pros and cons as to what you have to bring. You have to bring that bag, you have to bring the filter itself, you have to bring a plunger that I'll show you here in a little bit, and you have to make sure that you keep it from getting frozen and just all this stuff. So you can get multiple uses out of this, and a lot of people will set these up for base camp scenarios for a gravity fed system, and it drips really slow, but at that point you can just set your containers on the ground and just let it gravity feed into it, and it's a lot easier. But cleaning these things, what I do in the past is I bleach everything. It's never messed up anything, it's never failed me, but it does clean everything. These plungers come with both the regular and the mini Sawyer squeeze systems. You just simply force clean water through the opposite way that you filter through these filters. So you would essentially get the clean water that you have and back flush the filters. And I normally do this a couple of times, and then the last one, once all the clean water is forced out of the plunger, I go ahead and do a couple of things of air through the filter to just kind of get any excess water out of there. Once again, it works, but it's another piece to the puzzle that you have to have for these filters. And on top of that, you've got to now use your clean water to clean the filters that are giving you the clean water. So it's just counterintuitive to me. Next up is going to be the Patcn-BK filter. This one is way more compact, way less of a headache than the Sawyer squeeze systems, but it's essentially the same filter. It still gets down to the same microns and filters out the same bacteria and whatnot that the other Sawyer squeeze does. It just doesn't take care of the chemicals, lead, and taste, much like the Sawyer squeeze, but it's way more handy. The biggest thing is the bag is collapsible and a lot lighter, and the opening on the bag is enormous compared to the Sawyer. So very easily you can fill it up really quick. No headaches, no having to use an extra little bowl or cup or plastic bottle to pour into it. The flow rate on these are way better. The water comes out almost like what you would be drinking out of a water bottle you get from the store. And the only thing that makes me kind of nervous is the way that they tell you to clean the filter. If you're at home, there's specific directions on the bag that tell you, but if you're at home, you can't actually run this under a faucet. Instead, the directions on the bag tell you to fill the bag with clean water. I'm guessing even dirty water. It just shows water. And you just swish the filter around in it. And it's supposed to, I'm assuming, break up the debris or big particulates that are attached to the filter and clean it that way. So that kind of makes me nervous because how long does that last? So like in this clip, I obviously poured clean, purified water back into a dirty container. But that's just kind of been the easiest way that I've seen to clean it, because I for sure know that there's not big pieces of debris or particulates in there to help clog it. This is definitely the pros to this filter compared to the Sawyer Squeeze. Look how small it is, and you combine it with something to make it easier to fill up the bag, and you're ready to rock. This last filter I'm sharing with you is the one that's the newest for me, but it's by far the most impressive. This is the ultralight filter press by Grail. It's as simple as filling up the container to a certain line marked on the outside of the bottle, and then just pressing the filter down, and it forces water from the bottom up through their filter into the drinking container. And you can put a lid on it and put it in your pack and get to going. The only downsides I've seen to this so far is you need to have a flat surface to do this pressing motion on, and you just use your body weight. And then you have to be careful with what hand you're filling the outside container up with, and whenever you go to touch the rim of the filter and the press part of it, you could be exposing yourself to the bacteria and all that just from it being on your hand and then putting your lips on the outside of the container. So I normally have a dedicated hand that I fill with, and then a dedicated hand that I press with, or I just make sure that my palm is not going to touch that rim.
Okay, so now that I've shown you the three main types of filters that I use, the Sawyer Squeeze, both the mini and the larger one, the Be Free by Katadyn, and then my newest filter is the Grail, which they're coming out with a newer updated version of that. It's on Kickstarter right now. I think it's very close to being funded if it hasn't already been funded. But those are the three types of filters that I'm the most familiar with, that I've gotten the most use out of. All of them work great. All of them will make the water safe for you. I can attest to it. But there is pros and cons to each one. I'll just kind of separate it into a couple of categories here. So you have the complete filter that's going to not only get protozoa, bacteria, giardia, viruses, it's also going to make the water taste good, get rid of chemicals, any kind of fertilizer. It's approved the world over, and that's the Grail. That's the press filter that I showed you. That's the one that if I'm worried about anything, like this water source behind me, it gets this weird film layer over the top of it sometimes, and it just makes me think, like, what is that crap? It also sometimes tastes soapy when I use the Katadyn or the Sawyer. That Grail, it gets it all. For me, that's the big daddy. The other two, I would rank the Katadyn second place, because the mouth on that little bottle is very wide. I don't have to use that little collapsible rubber squishy cup to pour water into it like I do the Sawyer Squeeze bags. It also packs down very small. You saw how small that thing is. It's awesome. So that one and the Sawyer both are the same kind of filter. They're not going to get viruses. They're not going to get out chemicals and all of that like the Grail will. And then last, I would do the Sawyer Mini or the Sawyer Squeeze systems. So the cons to these filters, first off, the Grail, it is about $60 for the bottle and the filter. If you need to replace the cartridge on the bottom, it's another $25. And they claim that I think it's like 300 gallons that it can do. And I want to say that that's right around 40 presses with that filter. So that doesn't seem like a lot, but you know, it is what it is. It is more expensive, but it covers all those bases. The cons to the Katadyn Be Free is when you go to clean that filter, you cannot run it directly underwater. That's why you have to swish it around. And then with the Sawyer, the cons are the same as the Katadyn. It doesn't get rid of viruses, and it doesn't get rid of the taste of the water or any chemicals in the water. And then the Sawyer has a lot of little kits and components to it that you have to have. And like you saw with the orange one, with the Sawyer Mini Squeeze, the backflow or the flow rate on them, it gets pretty bad. And so even after backflow, and it slows down considerably. With all these filters, the number one thing that's the enemy to this is freezing temperatures, especially the Katadyn and the Sawyer filters. If you leave those things out and you go get in your hammock or you get in your tent and it freezes at night, those two are done. There's nothing you can do with them. You got to go get new ones. If they happen to get cracked or broken, same thing, you got to go get new ones. They claim with the Grail filter it can withstand 2 freezes before you need to get the new cartridge. You don't have to get a whole new bottle. So they claim that the bottle itself can handle the freezing temperature. So that's a plus, but you're still looking at $25 for that cartridge. So there's pros and cons to it all. You're going to be able to boil water as many times as your heart desires in your water bottle. Unless you run that thing over with the truck, that bottle will be with you for the rest of your time in the woods. So it's got the longevity going for it. But with all of this, I think the thing to remember is how convenient is this stuff and how effective is it? So for me, convenience is more than just it's lightweight or it's small and packable. Convenience is it doesn't take a long time to do something. I don't have to sit and build a fire or get my stove started and ready for the water to boil and stuff. I can just dip that thing in the water, press it, drink. I can just dip that bottle in the water and squeeze it, and I'm good to go. That's convenience. Effectiveness. It's absolutely effective for boiling water. It kills viruses and bacteria. And then if you happen to have a bandana, you can strain off the particulates or the pieces of debris and stuff, and you'll be good. The effectiveness of these filters, it's like 0.001 or something that you've got to worry about. So unless you know for sure your area has viruses, the Sawyer and the Be Free filter are going to be just fine. They're effective. They've been proven. And there's tons of people on the internet and YouTube and that you meet in these gatherings and stuff that have used them. So effectiveness there is a guarantee with these filters. So those are 2 things to keep in mind, the convenience and the effectiveness. And for me, it's just no question. This day and age with the technology that we have now with these filters, it's a no-brainer for me to put them in my kit. I'm gonna put a filter in my kit with all the other essentials, a knife, a ferro rod, all that stuff. I'm considering a filter that's part of that these days. Regardless of whatever you prefer and whatever you choose, it's up to you. Just as long as you get out here and run around in the creeks and explore in the woods and stuff. That's what this is all about, is having fun. So I hope you enjoyed the video. Remember, get outside and enjoy the woods, and wish me some luck. I'm gonna go look for some arrowheads.